Leveling playing field, you take out the Detroit automakers.
I think there's this difference between what's great for Elon and what's sort of great for Tesla.
So it's interesting to see that people feel like Elon's relationship with Donald Trump will overcome a potential shift in policy.
I mean, the shrewd investor would say, well, what is the real play? What's the opportunity?
All that and more. So let's get to it.
Let's bring in Dan Ives, Wedbush Securities Analyst, of course, a buy rating on Tesla, and a recent target at least of 300. Dan, good morning. Does that change, that number?
Without a shadow of a doubt, Dan will be chasing the TSLA stock price to the moon. What will be Dan Ives' next fair value estimate for TSLA? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Me? I'm thinking a round number, something like 350.
I think $40 to $50 per share it adds just for beginners, not just because of what could happen from a tax credit perspective. I think leveling playing field, you take out the Detroit automakers, and then that's really going to give them an advantage from a cost, scale, and scope perspective. But I think the big thing here, Trump could ultimately fast-track autonomous FSD. And our whole view, as we've talked about in the show, $1 trillion of valuation just on AI alone. This is going to unlock it. That's a key.
First and foremost, nothing is going to fast-track FSD except it being feature complete and 99.9999999% efficiency when it comes to disengagements. And of course, we're talking critical disengagements because those are the only disengagements that matter. It is safe to say, however, that there won't be any unnecessary hurdles in front of Tesla's path to solving for general autonomy. A national approach to autonomous driving might actually be a good thing, especially when it comes to rolling out FSD with the flip of a switch via over-the-air software updates. But first and foremost, the product needs to work.
Let's take a look at Tesla. Shares of that stock are surging today on the back of Donald Trump's victory. Trump mentioning CEO Elon Musk in his speech following the election results.
We have a new star. A star is born, Elon. He's a character, he's a special guy, he's a super genius. We have to protect our geniuses. We don't have that many of them.
Looks like at least initial reaction that maybe Musk's big bet here on Trump pays off, at least for him. I'm curious, as a Tesla shareholder, how are you looking at this?
Well, certainly it puts Elon in the driver's seat as far as access to the White House. I think there's this difference between what's great for Elon and what's sort of great for Tesla. To the Tesla's advantage, I would assume that this would help them getting, at least on a federal regulatory basis, get some of the heat off of them because they have so many investigations. On a state level, it doesn't help them at all as far as getting approvals for robo-taxis and such. You know, what I really think is it's too early to determine if Trump's going to roll back the subsidies to EVs, and this will hopefully prevent that from happening and hurting Tesla, and hence the rally, although Trump has threatened to do this. So I think it's too early to be seeing how much this really is going to affect Tesla in the short term or the long term. But obviously having Musk as of now in Trump's favor, can't hurt Tesla, and that's why the stock's rallying.
As we know that there's a lot of government help or incentive or regulation all pushing the electric vehicle transition. And Tesla's absolutely benefited from that. But we also know that Donald Trump doesn't necessarily support that thinking. He's not big. He backed out of the Paris Accords. He's not necessarily a big supporter of the concept of a government-led transition to EVs. And if you look at some of the other electric vehicle stocks like Rivian and Lucid, they're not doing so well. So it's interesting to see that people feel like Elon's relationship with Donald Trump will overcome a potential shift in policy, because I do think the EPA regulations and expectations for electric vehicle sales and market share are not realistic. There's a disconnect between what the government wants to have happen, the current policy wants to have happen in the next 10 years, and what seems to be happening in the actual marketplace. And I expect we're going to see a reassessment and likely rollback of those requirements, which should be somewhat negative for all the electric vehicle companies to not have that kind of government support, including Tesla.
Rolling back certain segments of the IRA would be detrimental to the EV industry at large, but Tesla doesn't need these regulatory credits. Don't get me wrong, the money's nice. but it's not absolutely necessary. When evaluating Tesla as a company, many analysts will exclude those regulatory credits when you're talking about the margin anyway. Don't get me wrong, the regulatory credits will be missed, but they're not absolutely necessary for Tesla to function as a business.
And Elon made a big bet around Trump. His next big bet's autonomy, and the probability that that's successful goes up a little bit. As far as how much of that's sustainable, I mean, the shrewd investor would say, well, what is the real play? What's the opportunity? And we've kind of outlined these numbers, but just to recap, is that if Tesla gains 50% share of the US ride-sharing market by 2030, which actually I think is a reasonable target. We'll save that discussion for another day.
Oh, I'd say it's more than reasonable, Gene. By 2030? Ooh, that number might be closer to 75 in my opinion.
But that would add about 20% to operating income. And so stocks up 15%, that adds 20%. Now they can take this in other parts of the world, but a lot of it got priced in a hurry. I'm a big believer in what that means. The one piece that maybe wasn't priced in today is that if they sell more robo-taxis, Elon's talking about 2 to 4 million a year ultimately. That'd be about a third of total Tesla deliveries. I'll take the under on that. I think it's probably closer to 1 to 2, but that's another piece. So, Melissa, to answer your question, I think that this kind of fairly reflected or started to price in some of the robo-taxi opportunity.
Yeah, and then that's where analysts and so many Wall Streeters got so bullish after that cybercab event. That's where they sort of said, you know, the market cap could be X, Y, and Z above what it is right now.
Is she talking about me? Not a lot of roadblocks from now until the Q4 earnings report. If anything, there's a whole lot of catalysts that can occur between now and sometime in January. Who knows? But a decade from now, I think we're still talking about Tesla being the most valuable company on the planet. In conclusion, the financial news media attempts to grapple with TSLA skyrocketing after Donald J. Trump wins the election. This is obviously bad news for EV manufacturers. How is this good for Tesla? To sum it up in a sentence, they not like us. Tesla scale globally puts them in a different category when you're talking about economics, and customer satisfaction kind of gives you a tell on what the quality of these vehicles are like. Tesla is the only company making money off of battery electric vehicles and can afford to cut their prices. Meanwhile, other EV manufacturers are reliant on this EV tax credit. Without it, the difference in cost between the more superior vehicle and theirs is going to be gargantuan. I want to see our legacy auto manufacturers, Ford, GM, I want them to succeed. But this Trump presidency is not going to bode well for them. They already had a huge mountain to climb. It's already tough. And it's about to get a little bit tougher. Meanwhile, Tesla is firing on all cylinders. Progression with FSD, the robotics division is improving at a dramatic pace. The energy division supplying Powerwalls and Megapacks all over the world. Regardless of who sits in the Oval Office, Tesla will be just fine. That's all I've got for you today. Be easy.